Meet Gun-woo, a young man who's a professional boxer. Inside the ring, he's got a total poker face, cold, calculated, and packing punches with insane power. But the second he steps out of those ropes, he's the sweetest, most well-behaved kid you'll ever meet. He's a gentle giant who wouldn't dream of using his fists to bully anyone. The story takes place during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. While Gun-woo is waiting for the bus, he notices a middle-aged man casually spitting on the ground, while everyone else is responsibly wearing their masks. Gun-woo just minds his own business and doesn't make a scene. But then, the same rude guy gets on the bus, and the driver tells him he has to wear a mask or the bus will get fined. Instead of complying, the guy starts yelling and actually hits the bus driver. Seeing this, Gun-woo steps in. He calmly wraps the guy in a bear hug, carries him off the bus, and even has the politeness to apologize for the trouble. Once they're off, the guy starts wailing on Gun-woo, hitting him repeatedly. But Gun-woo, he doesn't strike back. Not even once. He just dodges every blow and keeps apologizing. Eventually, the guy realizes he's no match for Gun-woo's reflexes and scurries away. When Gun-woo gets back on the bus, the passengers burst into a round of applause, telling him he looked absolutely badass. Life isn't easy for Gun-woo, though. He lives with his mom, whose cafe business is struggling hard because of the pandemic. She's drowning in debt, including back rent, because their landlord refuses to lower the price despite the hard times. To help out, Gun-woo enters a professional boxing tournament as a super rookie. In his first match, he KOs his opponent with a single punch to the gut. In the next round, he effortlessly dodges every attack before landing a heavy blow that drops his opponent instantly. But here's the thing. As soon as he wins, Gun-woo rushes over to his opponent to sincerely ask if they're okay. Finally, Gun-woo makes it to the finals. His opponent is a guy named Hong Woo-jin. Woo-jin's coach warns him to watch out for Gun-woo's signature left hook, but Woo-jin is cocky. He's an undefeated Marine. After all, the match begins and it's intense. Woo-jin goes on the offensive, but Gun-woo dodges the onslaught and lands a devastating left hook to the ribs that sends Woo-jin to the canvas. Woo-jin manages to get up, screaming to psych himself up. He manages to block the next hook and even imagines himself landing a knockout blow on Gun-woo. But in reality, Gun-woo is just too fast. He connects with his trademark left hook, knocking Woo-jin out cold and claiming the championship title. After the loss, Woo-jin gets the cold shoulder from his coach. Feeling down, he asks for some food money to drown his sorrows, but the coach just tosses him a few bucks and tells him to go eat by himself. As Woo-jin walks out, he finds the winner, Gun-woo, waiting for him. Gun-woo surprisingly invites his rival out for some grilled pork belly. Woo-jin is actually starving, but he tries to play it cool and refuses at first, not wanting any pity. However, Gun-woo's sincerity is so genuine that Woo-jin eventually gives in. Woo-jin then tries to demand high-end beef instead, knowing Gun-woo just won a 10 million won prize. But Gun-woo stands his ground, explaining that he needs every cent to help his mom pay off her debts. Despite Woo-jin's nagging, Gun-woo won't budge. In the end, Woo-jin decides to chip in his own money so they can enjoy some grilled beef together. At the restaurant, Woo-jin asks if Gun-woo only fights with his left hand. Gun-woo casually mentions that his right hand is actually even stronger. He just hasn't had to use it yet. While they're grilling, Woo-jin tries to flip the meat, but Gun-woo stops him. Having worked part-time at a restaurant, Gun-woo knows the science. He tells Woo-jin they need to wait exactly 30 more seconds for it to be perfect. As they eat, they start bonding over their difficult family situations. Woo-jin realizes Gun-woo is 2 years younger than him and tries to act like the big brother. But then, the conversation shifts to their military service. Turns out they were both Marines. Even better, Woo-jin realizes that Gun-woo was actually his senior in the Corps. His attitude flips instantly. He goes into full respect mode, greeting his superior formally. They spend the rest of the night laughing and sharing military stories, and just like that, a deep ride-or-die friendship is born between two former rivals. Gun-woo heads back to his mom's small cafe. Inside, he catches her on the phone, desperately pleading with a friend to delay a debt payment. The moment she sees her son walk in, she quickly hangs up to hide her struggle. She gives Gun-woo a huge, proud hug, congratulating him on finally becoming the champion. Gun-woo doesn't waste any time. He pulls out the prize money he just won and hands it all to her, telling her to use it to pay off the back rent. His mom tries to refuse at first, but Gun-woo looks her in the eye and tells her he already knows everything she's been going through. She eventually takes the money, promising to pay him back with interest one day. The two of them close up the shop and head home, happy and united. Gun-woo is truly the definition of a devoted son. His life would be perfect if it just wasn't for the constant pressure of being broke. But of course, a villain has to show up and wreck this peaceful life. Enter Myung-gil, the CEO of a massive loan shark syndicate and a master of high-level scams. He's a total predator, looking to exploit everyone who's fallen on hard times because of the pandemic. Myung-gil sends his team of suit-and-tie goons all over the city to target struggling small business owners. They pose as representatives from a company called Smile Capital, claiming they are a government-backed initiative designed to help people survive the COVID crisis. They lure these shop owners in by offering contracts with a 5% interest rate, which sounds like a miracle since it's even lower than what the big banks offer. Right now, Gunwoo's mom is being targeted by Myung-gil's most loyal henchman, Junmin. This guy is a professional manipulator, and after listening to his sweet talk and empty promises, the mother agrees to sign the contract. Little does she know, the document is packed with sophisticated, hidden trap clauses designed to ruin her. Meanwhile, over in Seoul, there's a massive skyscraper that's sitting half-finished. Construction has been halted repeatedly due to the pandemic, forcing the original company into bankruptcy. The public is worried because the abandoned site is becoming a safety hazard. Eventually, a powerful conglomerate, Chaebol, buys the project. The eldest son of this tycoon family is currently in negotiations with a bank director to secure a massive loan, aiming to turn the building into a world-class luxury hotel. A congressman, sent by the city mayor to push the project forward, is overseeing the deal. That's when the loan shark boss, Myung-gil, walks in. He claims he was personally invited by the congressman. He offers to invest the missing 100 billion won into the project, but he wants a massive favor in return. He wants to build a casino on the rooftop and a high-end bar in the basement. Later, Myung-gil throws a lavish party for the congressman to keep him happy. In the middle of the celebration, the congressman gets a call confirming the mayor has officially approved Myung-gil's casino license. To show his gratitude, Myung-gil presents the congressman with several solid gold turtles, weighing a total of 7 kilograms. This public official, who supposedly lives on a modest salary, literally bows down in thanks to the crime boss. But what they don't realize is that this entire bribery exchange is being recorded on a hidden camera. Back to Gunwoo. He shows up at his gym for practice, only to find out it's closing for a week because someone tested positive for COVID. Feeling bored, he calls his new buddy Woo Jin to hang out. On his way to Woo Jin's place, Gunwoo spots a young man chasing and beating an older man. By the time Gunwoo catches up, the older man is lying unconscious on the ground. Gunwoo immediately chases after the mysterious attacker to find out what's going on. But things take a sudden turn when the stranger pulls out a taser and shocks Gunwoo, leaving him paralyzed on the ground. As it turns out, the attacker is actually a girl. She asks Gunwoo why the hell he's following her, explaining that the guy she was chasing was a notorious scammer. She tells Gunwoo to stop meddling in other people's business and disappears into the night. This girl is Hyun-ju, the adopted granddaughter of President Choi. Now, President Choi is a man with more money than he knows what to do with, but he is incredibly virtuous. He spends his life giving out interest-free loans to people who are too sick to pay for medical treatment. He finds pure joy in helping others. Hyun-ju's job is to investigate and hunt down the lowlifes who pretend to be sick just to scam her grandfather out of his money. When Hyun-ju asks her grandfather how long he plans to keep giving away money for free, he tells her that seeing a patient get better is the greatest interest he could ever receive. However, knowing that his granddaughter is reckless and constantly fighting thugs by herself, he calls a security firm director to find a professional bodyguard to keep her safe. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, Gunwoo's mom is just about to close up for the night when Junmin from Smile Capital rolls up with his crew. He drops a total bombshell. He claims she needs to pay an extension fee of 10% of the loan just 24 hours after signing the contract. Just like that, her debt has skyrocketed to a staggering 40 million won. Gunwoo's mom is absolutely floored. She threatens to call the police, but Junmin couldn't care less. He gives a signal and his group of thugs starts absolutely trashing the shop. In a moment of pure terror, the mother frantically calls her son. The second he hears the news, Gunwoo sprints back to save his mom. When he arrives, he's blocked by a wall of thugs. But when he sees Junmin actually strike his mother, Gunwoo snaps. He goes into full combat mode, taking down the goons one by one with precision until he finally reaches her. Seeing his entire squad wiped out, Junmin is literally shaking with fear. Gunwoo checks on his mom and then lunges forward, grabbing the leader by the throat. But right then, the big boss Myung-gil walks in. He's completely calm, acting like he's the victim here, stating that Gunwoo's mother borrowed money from his company, and now it's time to pay up. Gunwoo doesn't back down for a second. He fires back, demanding that they pay for all the damages they caused to the cafe first. Seeing the kid's defiance, the CEO orders his massive powerhouse henchman to handle Gunwoo. This guy's name is In-beom. He's built like a grizzly bear and has the endurance of an Iron Man. No matter how many times Gunwoo lands a punch, the guy doesn't even flinch. In-beom delivers a brutal headbutt that sends Gunwoo to the floor, but Gunwoo is a warrior. He staggers back up and manages to give the giant a bloody nose. This absolutely enrages the beast. In-beom grabs Gunwoo and unleashes a barrage of devastating blows until the young boxer finally collapses. Myung-gil is actually impressed by Gun-woo's grit and asks if he wants to come work for him. Gun-woo's response? He spits right in the CEO's face. Livid, Myung-gil takes a knife and slashes a deep, jagged line right across Gun-woo's cheek. Gun-woo is rushed to the hospital, where the doctor tells him they can perform a procedure to minimize the scar. But because they are completely out of money, Gun-woo has to refuse the treatment. Later, Gun-woo tells his buddy Woo-jin that the wound required 30 stitches. Woo-jin tells him they need to go to the cops, but Gun-woo is haunted by Myung-gil's threat. If he talks to the police, his mother is a dead woman, so he stays silent. Woo-jin then looks over the loan contract and spots a tiny trap clause hidden in the fine print. Thanks to this predatory scam, the debt and interest have already ballooned to 100 million won, and they need to find a way to pay it back immediately. If they don't, the debt will just keep spiraling out of control. Gun-woo admits that his family doesn't have a single penny left to their name. Seeing how stressed his friend is, Woo-jin takes him out for a meal to try and clear his head. Gun-woo then calls his mom, telling her that they were targeted by professional scammers, and there was simply no way to avoid it, doing his absolute best to comfort her during their darkest hour. As Gun-woo walks out, he overhears Woo-jin on the phone, desperately trying to borrow money from anyone he knows just to help him out. Gun-woo is so moved by his friend's loyalty that he's on the verge of tears. To find a solution, Woo-jin takes Gun-woo to meet a loan shark who happens to be his former boss. Gun-woo explains that they were scammed by Smile Capital and desperately need 100 million won to clear the debt. The former boss agrees to the loan with a surprisingly low 1% interest rate for 1 year, but there's a massive catch. Both of them have to work as his hounds, brutal debt collectors. He tells them that debt collection is a booming business thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Hearing this, Gun-woo immediately stands up and drags Woo-jin toward the exit. He firmly tells his friend that this job is just about bullying the weak. It's the work of thugs, not the behavior of a soldier. The former boss mocks them as they leave, warning that if they don't pay back Smile Capital, those guys won't just take their money. They'll come for their internal organs. Woo-jin, standing by his friend, returns the small amount of money he had and they both walk out, with Woo-jin giving his shady ex-boss one last death stare. Searching for another way, Woo-jin calls the director of a security firm for help. This director is also a former Marine and a senior to Woo-jin. He mentions that an incredibly wealthy man named President Choi is currently looking for bodyguards. The director had sent many candidates, but none of them made the cut, so he wants to recommend Gun-woo and Woo-jin. When Woo-jin mentions they need a loan, the director encourages them to meet President Choi, explaining that the man has more money than he knows what to do with and is incredibly kind-hearted. It turns out President Choi has already done his homework. He's had a private investigator look into Gun-woo's background. He notes that Gun-woo looks like a very trustworthy and hardworking young man. His driver then hands him Woo-jin's file and suggests they should probably hire both of them. Gun-woo and Woo-jin arrive at a sushi restaurant to meet the president, but the owner only allows Gun-woo to go inside for the interview. President Choi asks Gun-woo about the jagged scar on his face. Gun-woo is completely honest, explaining he got it while trying to stop loan sharks from attacking his mother. President Choi then opens up about his own past. He admits he used to be a loan shark himself but retired a long time ago. Now, he only gives out interest-free loans to help poor people pay for medical treatments. President Choi explains his offer. He needs a good person to act as a bodyguard for his granddaughter, who isn't related by blood. Gun-woo is visibly relieved to hear that he won't have to do any dirty work or debt collecting. President Choi tells him that he only made this decision after a very thorough background check. He then shares his motivation for using his fortune to help the less fortunate. In that moment, Gun-woo can feel that President Choi is a truly noble man. When he walks back outside, Gun-woo tells Woo-jin that he thinks he made a pretty good impression. Later that evening, the two friends head to Gun-woo's house to have a meal with his mother. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. It's President Choi's driver. He hands Gun-woo a heavy bag containing 100 million won in cash. He explains that this is a 2-year salary advance and tells him to report for work at 10 a.m. the next morning. As the driver leaves, Gun-woo collapses into a chair, clutching the bag of money and sobbing uncontrollably. A guardian angel had just stepped in and saved his family's life. Inside their home, Gun-woo hands the cash to his mother and explains everything that happened. Tears well up in her eyes as she apologizes to him, feeling guilty that her debt has derailed his promising future as a professional boxer. But Gun-woo, being the devoted son he is, stays positive and comforts her. Afterward, he turns to his best friend, Hong Woo-jin, to express his deepest gratitude. Woo-jin, however, isn't planning on going anywhere. He tells Gun-woo he wants to go back and personally ask President Choi for a job so they can work as a team. The two friends head back to see President Choi. Woo-jin goes into full beast mode, showing off his skills and charisma to prove his worth. Since President Choi already knew about Woo-jin's background as a Marine, he agrees to give him a shot. However, there's a catch. The president says he's only the money man. To get the job officially, they both have to pass an interview with his granddaughter, Hyun-ju. Gun-woo starts panicking. He asks what happens if they fail the interview. President Choi nonchalantly replies, "Well, then you'd have to pay the money back." Gun-woo's heart sinks as he admits he already used every penny to clear his mother's debt. President Choi just smiles, tells them to stay calm and have a little faith. He then hands Gun-woo a credit card and says, "Go grab yourselves a nice lunch." His only parting wish? For the two of them to always watch each other's backs like this. Later, the boys are waiting to meet their new boss, Hyun-ju, inside a library. Woo-jin happens to pull a book off the shelf and, to his absolute shock, finds 100 million won stashed inside. They realize that practically every book in the room is stuffed with cash. Being the honest guys they are, they quickly put everything back exactly where they found it. While waiting, Gun-woo tells Woo-jin the bad news. He's already met this Hyun-ju girl. She's the one who chased him down and tossed him in the street. Finally, Hyun-ju shows up. She's been dead set against her grandfather hiring bodyguards for her from the start. The second she sees the two of them, she tells them flat out, "I don't need bodyguards. Get out." She even goes as far as calling Woo-jin a jerk, which bruises his ego so badly he walks out of the room. Gun-woo, however, knows his family's life is on the line. He drops to his knees and literally begs Hyun-ju for the job. He explains the whole nightmare, how his mom was scammed for 100 million won by Smile Capital and how President Choi advanced him 2 years of salary to save her. If he loses this job, he has no way to pay the president back. It turns out Hyun-ju has a soft spot for justice. She's actually been secretly investigating the illegal activities of Smile Capital herself. She tells Gun-woo to stand up and takes both guys out to eat. At the restaurant, she briefs them on her target, a lowlife named Jae Myung. This guy lied to President Choi, saying his mother needed life-saving surgery to scam him out of 10 million won, then vanished. Hyun-ju's investigation revealed that Jae Myung and his crew are posing as homeless people to steal IDs from the actual homeless. They then use these stolen identities to take out massive loans from other shady lenders. The plot thickens when Hyun-ju reveals that this identity theft ring is actually operating under the orders of Jun-min, the same Smile Capital henchman who attacked Gun-woo's mother. Gun-woo's blood boils as he recognizes the name. Hyun-ju gives the two bodyguards their first mission. Stake out the crew and find out exactly how many IDs they steal in a single night. She leaves them with one strict warning. Whatever happens, they must keep their faces hidden. If they get spotted, the entire operation is blown. The scene shifts to the scammer Jae Myung and his gang, who are busy disguising themselves to look like derelicts so they can rob the homeless. As they pile into their car, Hyun-ju tails them from a distance, with Gun-woo and Woo-jin following closely behind. Jae Myung eventually approaches a group of people living on the streets. He starts spinning a web of lies, claiming to be a representative from the Seoul Homeless Association, a fake organization he says is fully funded by the government. Jae Myung dangles a carrot in front of these poor souls, promising that anyone who joins will receive a monthly government subsidy. All they have to do is hand over their ID cards to register, and the money will start rolling in by next week. Desperate and vulnerable, the homeless people fall for the trap hook, line, and sinker, handing over their only forms of identification one by one. Then, the scammers try their luck with an elderly man. But this old man isn't buying it. The second they start their pitch, he realizes these are the same lowlifes who scammed him before. He starts shouting, demanding his ID back. The scammers don't take kindly to being called out and start brutally beating the old man. Watching from the shadows, Gun-woo is itching to jump in, but Woo-jin holds him back, reminding him they need to stay undercover. However, when Gun-woo sees the old man take a heavy blow to the head and start bleeding, his hero complex kicks in. He can't just stand there. He charges out and absolutely demolishes the scammers to save the old man's life. By stepping in, the two of them completely blow their cover. Jae Myung catches a glimpse of the distinctive red cat hat Gun-woo is wearing and immediately bolts. Gun-woo realizes the old man needs urgent help and calls for an ambulance, then phones Hyun-ju to report what happened. Hyun-ju is absolutely livid. She screams at him through the phone, and despite Gun-woo's attempts to explain that he couldn't let a man die, she just hangs up on him. Woo-jin has to call her back and practically beg for mercy. Eventually, she tells them it's over, but gives them exactly 5 minutes to show up, explain themselves, and apologize. Later, at the bookstore hideout, while the trio is trying to figure out their next move, Hyun-ju spots something chilling on the security cameras. Jae Myung and his boss, Jun-min, are right outside. She's stunned. How the hell did they find this place? She immediately orders them to lock the doors and kill their phones. Outside, Jun-min searches the area with a flashlight but sees nothing. He orders Jae Myung to kick the back door hard as a warning, then glares directly into the security camera before finally leaving. Once the coast is clear, the three of them try to dissect how they were compromised. After tossing around a few theories, Gunwoo has a light bulb moment. It was the red cat hat. He remembers it clearly because Hyunju was wearing that same hat when she tossed him the first time they met. It's a signature look that led the bad guys straight to their doorstep. Hyunju then takes the boys to see President Choi. She comes clean, admitting they've been secretly tracking Jae Myung to catch him. Something the president had strictly forbidden because it was too dangerous. While she's busy making excuses for their actions, she tells Gunwoo to take the bandage off his face. When President Choi sees Gunwoo's jagged scar, he's visibly shaken. He asks who did this, and Gunwoo reveals it was the boss of Smile Capital. Gunwoo adds a key detail. The guy has a long scar on his cheek, just like his own. Hearing this, President Choi goes dead silent and tells them all to go home and get some rest. As soon as they leave, the president orders his driver, Mr. O, to confirm if the man behind Smile Capital is indeed a man named Myung-gil. Meanwhile, Hyunju and her two bodyguards have clearly bonded over the chaos and head out for some K-barbecue. Over dinner, Hyunju opens up about her past. She and President Choi aren't actually blood-related. She was an orphan at a shelter owned by the president, and he officially adopted her when she was 17. Back at the office, President Choi receives a call from Mr. O, confirming his worst fears. Myung-gil is indeed the CEO of Smile Capital. The president's mind drifts back to the past, to the day he decided to shut down his own loan shark business for good. It turns out Myung-gil wasn't just some random thug. He was one of the employees the president had fired that day. That night, things take a dark and dangerous turn. President Choi receives an urgent call from security informing him that two burglars have broken into his office. He doesn't hesitate. He jumps in his car and races straight to the scene. It turns out the intruders are the human powerhouse Inbeam and a professional locksmith. They manage to crack President Choi's safe and hit the absolute jackpot. Piles of cash, gold bars, and a stack of promissory notes, each worth a staggering 1 billion won. President Choi arrives at the office and heads up alone. Despite his age, he proves he's still a force to be reconnaissance with, taking down both the locksmith and the grizzly bear Inbeam by himself. As he demands to know who sent them, the villainous CEO Myung-gil steps out of the shadows and plunges a knife into him. President Choi manages to pull out his own knife to fight back, but Myung-gil stabs him again. In a final burst of adrenaline, the president lunges forward and slashes Myung-gil's face. But before he can do more, Inbeam recovers and comes to his boss's rescue. He literally throws President Choi out of the high-rise window, sending him plummeting to the ground. Myung-gil and his crew scramble to grab all the money and notes, then douse the office in gasoline and set it ablaze to erase every trace of evidence. However, when Inbeam looks down from the window to confirm the kill, President Choi's body is nowhere to be found. He's vanished into thin air. Against all odds, President Choi survives the fall. He warns his granddaughter Hyunju that she needs to stay far away from Jae Myung and his crew, calling them nothing but cold-blooded killers. He orders her to move the bookstore immediately, admitting that he's now old, weary, and no longer has the strength to wage war against such pure evil. Meanwhile, Myung-gil and his inner circle have a high-stakes meeting with a powerful chaebol heir, Director Hong Min-beam. Min-beam hasn't come alone. He's brought his cousin, Min-kong, who happens to be a high-ranking police officer. This family is the real deal. They have deep ties to the National Tax Service and the Audit Bureau. Knowing he's playing in the big leagues, Myung-gil warns his goons that no matter what happens in that room, they have to keep their cool and suck it up. Inside the VIP room, the wealthy heir breaks out bottles of incredibly strong liquor. He and his cop cousin start a high-intensity drinking battle, daring Myung-gil to keep up with them. They treat it like a test of manhood, slamming back glass after glass like it's just iced tea. Throughout the night, Min-beam and the cop continuously throw insults and shade at Smile Capital. Myung-gil and his men are fuming, but they have to swallow their pride and smile through the disrespect. Then, the chaebol heir drops the hammer. He's already raised the 100 billion won himself, and he is not letting Myung-gil build a casino in his family's luxury hotel. He sees right through Myung-gil's plan to use his family's prestige as a front for a legal casino. He gives a chilling warning. Don't you dare use my family's name to do business, or you're dead. To add insult to injury, he mocks the fresh scar on Myung-gil's face, leaving the CEO speechless and humiliated. But the rich kid clearly doesn't realize he just messed with a true gangster who plays dirty. Myung-gil immediately orders his men to find the heir's Achilles heel, something fatal they can use against him. Later, Director Hong drives his supercar into a garage for a wash. The employee there is actually a mole who immediately tips off Myung-gil's crew. The hotel heir finds himself trapped inside the garage, where a gang of thugs quickly overpowers him, restrains him, and strips him completely naked. Myung-gil's right-hand man and the human tank, Inbeam, close in on their target. The powerful chaebol heir, Hong Min-beam, who was so cocky just hours ago, is now on his knees like a dog, desperately begging for forgiveness. The thug looks at him coldly and says, "You really shouldn't have messed with my CEO." Then comes the ultimate humiliation. The thug pulls out a phone and orders Director Hong to strip. When the heir continues to plead for mercy, In-beom loses patience. He grabs Hong by the throat and pours a burning, toxic chemical over his face. Unable to bear the agonizing pain and terror, the wealthy director is forced to comply with their sick demands while another henchman, Jang Du, films the entire scandalous scene. Once they have the footage they need, they send the video straight to Myung-gil to show him that the heir is officially under their thumb. Meanwhile, Myung-gil and In-beom drive to a secret location where the CEO hides his gold. This isn't just any gold. It's been melted down from the bars they stole from President Choi. Myung-gil makes a promise to his loyal giant. If their business ever fails, the two of them will flee to Vietnam and live like royalty for the rest of their lives. Hearing this, In-beom is deeply moved by his boss's generosity. Back on the streets, Hyun-ju, Gun-woo, and Woo-jin decide to ignore President Choi's warnings. They are still determined to track down and capture Jae-myung. They stake out the area in Hyun-ju's car, but they've underestimated their enemies. The second the scammers spot Hyun-ju's familiar car, they know they're being followed. Jae-myung immediately tips off the lead henchman, Jun-min. Instead of running, the villains decide to lead the trio into a deadly trap at a secluded area where the homeless congregate. Gun-woo and Woo-jin follow them into a dark tunnel. Just like before, Jae-myung suddenly stops and taunts them, daring the two vets to stop hiding and step out into the light. At that moment, Hyun-ju notices several cars packed with thugs arriving at the scene. Realizing her friends are walking into an ambush, she frantically calls President Choi for backup. The president immediately reaches out to one of his old, legendary subordinates for help. Inside the tunnel, a swarm of thugs armed with clubs surrounds Gun-woo and Woo-jin from both sides. As Woo-jin pulls off his mask to get ready for the fight, Jun-min recognizes him immediately. He's the son of the cafe owner who fought them off before. A brutal, lopsided battle breaks out. Gun-woo and Woo-jin fight like lions, taking down wave after wave of thugs. However, the numbers are too much. Woo-jin takes a heavy blow to the head and collapses. Seeing his brother-in-arms down, Gun-woo goes into a blind rage, fighting tooth and nail to protect him. Hyun-ju finally dives into the fray, using her baton and taser to drop several more goons. After an exhausting struggle, the three of them somehow manage to take down the entire mob and escape. But while they were fighting for their lives, another nightmare was unfolding at Gun-woo's house. His mother is fast asleep when she hears a noise, thinking her son has finally come home. Instead, two thugs and Jae-myung burst into her room. They drug her with chloroform and carry her unconscious body out. Just as they are about to make their getaway, a mysterious uncle, President Choi's man, appears out of the shadows. He quickly KOs one thug and then systematically takes down the second. Jae-myung panics, picks up the mother, and tries to bolt. The first thug manages to get back up and attack the uncle, but the older man puts him down for good and continues the chase. Realizing he can't outrun him, Jae-myung heartlessly drops the mother onto the pavement and tries to save his own skin. But the uncle catches up, gives him a taste of his own medicine with a knife, and then, to make sure he never runs again, he slices both of Jae-myung's Achilles tendons. At the same time, another uncle sent by President Choi arrives at the tunnel to rescue Gun-woo's group. But when he gets there, he sees the kids have already handled the business themselves. As he's leaving, one stray thug tries to block his path. The uncle barely breaks a sweat as he dispatches the guy in seconds and disappears into the night. These two mysterious heroes are Yang-young and Du-young, President Choi's former top-tier enforcers who have been living off the grid for years. After the chaos, Gun-woo's mother is rushed to President Choi's residence for protection. When the trio arrives, instead of a good job, they get a massive scolding from the president. He's furious that they acted recklessly and strictly forbids them from ever tangling with those criminals again. For her safety, he decides to move Gun-woo's mom to a private orphanage he owns, where she'll be completely untouchable. Meanwhile, Myung-gil visits the hospital to check on his battered squad. The doctors give him the grim news. Jae-myung's Achilles tendons have been sliced clean through. Jae-myung describes the attacker as a man with god-tier knife skills, specifically using a professional sashimi knife. Hearing this, Myung-gil just lets out a chilling smirk and walks away. He knows exactly who he's dealing with. That assassin is indeed Yang-young, who has been lying low as a humble sushi chef. He and Du-young were once the legendary twin blades under President Choi's command. After a long talk with their old boss, the two masters decide it's time to hang up their aprons and pick up their knives again. They're coming out of retirement to end Myung-gil once and for all and to avenge their fallen brothers. Back at his headquarters, Myung-gil briefs his three most loyal lieutenants about these ghosts from the past. He explains that back in the day, President Choi had 10 elite knife masters under his wing. When Myung-gil staged his coup and took over the business, He thought he had successfully slaughtered every single one of them. But it turns out Choi's legendary right and left hands are still breathing, and they're the ones who just crippled his men. The Dream Team, President Choi, Driver Oh, Yang Yung, and Du Young, gather to map out their counterattack. They analyze the files of Myung-gil's 3 top lieutenants and assign each one to a team member. When Yang Yung asks about the mountain of cash stashed at the bookstore, the president says it needs to be moved immediately since the location has been compromised. Yang Yung suggests letting the kids handle the heavy lifting, pointing out that Gunwoo and Woo Jin managed to take down 30 thugs with just their bare hands. Seeing their potential, the president agrees to let the young trio handle the transport. While the 3 youngsters are enjoying a final home-cooked meal from Gunwoo's mom, Hyun-ju gets the text from her grandfather. The mission is set. Move all the cash from the bookstore under the cover of darkness the night after tomorrow. When the time comes, they pack their gear and head to the store with 2 cars and a stack of boxes. Inside the bookstore, they think they're alone, but they're being stalked. Jang Do, one of Myung-gil's top killers, is creeping through the shadows with a knife. As Hyun-ju starts packing the cash into boxes, Gunwoo and Woo Jin head into the warehouse to grab a dolly. Watching the security monitors, Hyun-ju suddenly spots movement. She sees the giant, In Byum, sneaking into the warehouse where the boys are. She sprints toward the warehouse to warn them, but Jang-do blindsides her, landing a heavy blow that sends her crashing to the floor. Hyun-ju tries to fight back with her taser, but the professional killer is too fast. He grabs her arm and turns her own device against her, shocking her until she collapses into unconsciousness. Back in the warehouse, the human tank In Byum is looking for a rematch. He already beat Gunwoo once, but this time he's facing both young lions at the same time. It's a brutal, close-quarters brawl. After a frantic struggle, the duo finally manages to bring the giant down. Gunwoo starts absolutely pummeling him, and he's seconds away from turning In Byum's face into mush before Woo Jin pulls him back. They decide to play it smart, using heavy-duty zip ties to restrain the beast. Meanwhile, things are looking grim for Hyun-ju as Jang-do tries to carry her off, but she isn't going down without a fight. The moment she regains consciousness, she sinks her teeth into his back so hard that he screams in agony and drops her. Now on her feet, Hyun-ju spots some knives on the floor but decides to stick with her trusty baton to face Jang-do head-on. This guy thought he was a big shot, but he completely underestimated her. Despite her slim frame, Hyun-ju is a whirlwind of precision. She completely dismantles Jang-do and leaves him gasping on the floor in under 90 seconds. She grabs the keys, frees herself from her restraints, and then uses the same handcuffs to pin Jang-do to a pipe. The trio regroups and heads back into the bookstore to finish the job. But while they're busy, Jang-do, who is a professional for a reason, somehow manages to slip his cuffs and escape. He calls Myung-gil, pleading for help and saying he's badly injured and needs a hospital. Myung-gil's response? A cold-blooded screw you. He doesn't give a damn about his men. He just orders a fresh wave of thugs to the bookstore to finish the job. With a mob of gangsters closing in, Gunwoo and the team frantically load boxes of cash into their cars. Just as they're about to bail, Hyun-ju remembers a safe upstairs containing billions in gold and cash. She and Woo Jin sprint back up, shove everything into 2 heavy bags, and race back out. But they're too late, the thugs have arrived. They jump into their cars and a high-stakes chase begins. Jang-do is right on their tail, repeatedly ramming Hyun-ju's car. But Hyun-ju is a beast behind the wheel. She pulls a pro maneuver, swiping his car and disabling it completely. Jang-do, refusing to give up, leaps into a subordinate's car to keep the hunt alive. As they hit a tunnel, Gunwoo leads the way while Hyun-ju plays defense, swerving to block the thugs from passing. When they try to squeeze by, she floors it, slamming into their car and flipping it over in a spectacular crash. But the impact is too much, her car is a total write-off and the engine dies. With no other choice, she and Woo Jin grab the bags of gold and start running for their lives. Seeing his friends in trouble, Gunwoo makes a split-second decision. He starts tossing boxes of cash out of his car onto the road just to clear enough space for his friends to jump in. Woo Jin and Hyun-ju are sprinting, but the bags of gold and cash are incredibly heavy, and the thugs are gaining ground. In a heartbreaking moment, they realize it's life or money. So they ditch the bags and make a dash for Gunwoo's car. They scramble inside, and Gunwoo floors it, narrowly escaping the clutches of Myung-gil's army. Later, the legendary Uncle Yang Yung breaks the news to President Choi. The kids were ambushed, and the gold from the safe is gone. But President Choi doesn't care about the billions. His only question is, are they hurt? His genuine concern for their lives leaves Hyun-ju deeply moved. However, the threat isn't over. Back at the warehouse, the powerhouse In Byum finally wakes up. In a terrifying display of raw strength, he literally snaps the zip ties with his bare hands. He manages to limp out, catches a taxi, and heads to Myung-gil's private hospital to lick his wounds and prepare for revenge. While the dust was settling, the legendary Du Young had been secretly tailing the enemy and finally pinpointed the location of Myung-gil's private hospital. Inside, the powerhouse Inbeom is in rough shape. He's got a ruptured eardrum from the fight. Meanwhile, a vengeful Myung-gil orders Junmin to track down the address of the bookstore owner, so they can finally find President Choi's hideout. Back at the safe house, President Choi pulls Gun-woo aside for a heart-to-heart. He thanks Gun-woo and Woo-jin, noting that ever since they arrived, his granddaughter Hyunju has been noticeably brighter and happier. Then he drops a bombshell. He's officially wiped Gun-woo's debt clean. He tells the boy he doesn't need to work another day to pay back that 100 million won. Consider it a massive bonus for getting the cash safely out of the bookstore. On top of that, the president promises to invest in a massive, state-of-the-art cafe for Gun-woo's mom. But Gun-woo, being the honorable warrior he is, refuses to just walk away. He insists on staying by the president's side until Myung-gil is taken down for good, as a way to truly repay his kindness. Even though the president says it's not necessary, Gun-woo's mind is made up. Later that day, Uncle Yang-yung treats the three youngsters to an incredible sushi feast, prepared right in front of them with his masterful skills. Deong joins them, but he brings a heavy warning. He tells the two young boxers that if they get involved in this war and end up with a criminal record, their professional boxing careers are over. They'll never be allowed back in the ring. But Gun-woo and Woo-jin don't even flinch. They're committed to this fight until the bitter end. Every person at that table confirms they aren't afraid of death and will stand shoulder to shoulder in the coming battle. Uncle Yang-yung declares, the attack starts tonight. He takes Gun-woo and Woo-jin under his wing, teaching them the deadly art of the knife and how to sharpen their killer instinct to match that of a true blade master. Meanwhile, Uncle Duyong hooks Hyunju up with a high-performance motorcycle and trains her in a specialized combat style, learning how to weave through traffic while using a baton to take out enemies at high speed. The offensive kicks off in a parking garage. Uncle Duyong lies in wait while Hyunju keeps watch from above. The moment Junmin's car pulls in, she signals the veteran. Duyong roars in on his bike and delivers a precise strike with his baton right to Junmin's throat, dropping him instantly. But the enemy is ready. A car full of thugs rams into Duyong's bike and they start swarming him. Just in time, Hyunju rides in like a total badass, swinging her baton and systematically dropping every single thug to rescue Duyong. On the other side of the city, Uncle Yang-yung and the two boxers infiltrate Myung-gil's private hospital. They spot the killer Jang-do entering an elevator, so the three of them sprint up the stairs to cut him off. As soon as Jang-do steps out, Yang-yung is there to greet him with a knife wound and forces him down the stairwell. A guard tries to intervene, but Gun-woo and Woo-jin flatten him in seconds. Jang-do tries to make a break for it, but Uncle Yang-yung hurls him down the stairs and delivers a finishing blow that leaves him unconscious. After a quick text to President Choi, they haul Jang-do away to one of Duyong's abandoned safe houses. Once they arrive, Uncle Yang-yung tells the boys to prep a bucket of salt water. The two legendary uncles tie Jang-do to a chair. President Choi calls in, saying he wants to teach this guy a lesson and wants the three kids to witness it. Uncle Yang-yung tells a hesitant Hyunju that the president specifically wants her to watch. What follows is a brutal display of interrogation. Deong uses a wood planer to shave thin layers of skin off the man's thigh, while Yang-yung rubs the salt water into the raw wound. It's agonizing, but Jang-do is a professional. He refuses to talk. They repeat the process on his other leg. The sight is so stomach-turning that Hyunju can't handle it. She runs outside and loses her lunch. When President Choi finally arrives on the scene, a shaken Hyunju asks him why he forced her to watch something so horrific. The president looks at her with a heavy gaze and admits that he doesn't know if he'll survive this war. He wants to leave them with one final, brutal lesson in psychological warfare, to show them exactly what it takes to survive in a world of monsters. After the brutal interrogation by the uncles, President Choi steps in to finish the job. But he doesn't use physical pain, he uses psychological warfare. He looks Jang-do in the eye and breaks him down, explaining that out of all the inner circle, Jang-do knows Myung-gil's dark heart best. He tells him that while Myung-gil is a master at manipulating loyalty, in reality, Jang-do is nothing but a disposable tool. One mistake, and Myung-gil will erase him without a second thought. Here's how this works, Choi says calmly. If I take a photo of you right now and send it to Myung-gil, he'll believe you've already spilled everything. He'll stop at nothing to hunt you down and kill you. Jang-do starts to panic. He knows the president is right. Choi then offers him a way out. If he talks, the president will ensure his safety, get him out of the country, and give him enough money to live a comfortable life forever. That's the breaking point. Jang-do flips and starts singing like a canary. He admits he's been Myung-gil's cleaner for 5 years, making sure that none of their illegal dirt ever reaches the police. He reveals the smoking gun. They did indeed film the naked humiliation of the chaebol heir, Director Hong. They're using that video to blackmail the family into letting Myung-gil build a 40-story casino in their hotel. But it gets worse. Jang-do reveals there are 50 other videos just like that one, targeting other powerful people. All these kill files are stored on a hard drive inside a high-tech safe at Myong-gil's house. Here's the catch. The safe has a remote self-destruct feature. If Myong-gil senses a threat, he can wipe the drive instantly from his phone. That hard drive is Myong-gil's ultimate shield, but it's also the one thing that could end him forever. President Choi keeps his word, sending Jang-do to a private clinic for treatment while arranging a fake passport and a plane ticket. Before they leave, Do-young confiscates Jang-do's phone. Choi asks about the stolen gold, but Jang-do says only the Iron Man In-beam knows the location. He's the only one Myong-gil trusts completely with the treasure. Meanwhile, the villain himself, CEO Myong-gil, is having a tense meeting with the heir, Hong Min-beam, and his cop cousin. Myong-gil is acting like he owns the place. He grabs the cop's phone and shows him a photo of the man on the motorcycle, Do-young, who attacked his men. He gives the cop a brutal ultimatum. You have 5 hours to find this guy's hideout. If you don't, that video of your cousin being stripped bare goes viral. To make sure they stay in line, he confiscates the heir's phone and walks out. On the drive back, the two legendary uncles explain the big picture to Gun-woo and Woo-jin. They reveal Myong-gil's master plan. He wants to use the prestige of the Il-gil group to open a legal casino. Once it's open, he'll connect it to his loan shark business. It's a perfect blood-sucking cycle. The more people lose at the tables, the more they'll be forced to take high-interest loans from him. When Woo-jin points out that casinos are supposed to be for foreigners only, the uncle just laughs. You think a guy like Myong-gil gives a damn about the law? In another car, President Choi is sharing a quiet moment with his granddaughter, Hyun-ju. He reveals that Myong-gil once robbed him of a staggering 20 billion 1 years ago. He makes her a beautiful promise. Once this war is over and the pandemic finally clears up, he's going to take her to Rome so she can finally enjoy the life she deserves. President Choi is feeling generous, promising the two young bodyguards that they'll all be going on a trip to Italy once this is over. He and his granddaughter share a rare, happy moment, even making a pinky promise to each other. To celebrate their progress, the president invites everyone over for a massive drinking session. Everyone is clinking glasses and getting wasted except for Gun-woo. The good boy stays true to his character and sticks to soda while the others party hard. Meanwhile, the cop is back at the office, eyes glued to the security monitors, desperately trying to unmask the man on the motorcycle. Back at the house, the team feels optimistic. They've decided that finding Myong-gil's hidden hard drive is the silver bullet they need to take him down. They raise their glasses to a future victory, completely unaware of the storm brewing outside. After the party, the two legendary uncles share an emotional heart-to-heart. Do-young finally drops a bombshell. He's going to be a father in just 2 months. Uncle Yang-young feigns a scold, asking why he didn't tell him sooner, then immediately stuffs some cash into Do-young's hand, telling him to buy something healthy for his wife. Do-young smiles, hops in a taxi, and heads home to his family. At the same time, the chaebol heir is breathing down the cop's neck, terrified that his shameful video will leak. After hours of agonizing surveillance, the cop finally hits the jackpot. He spots the two motorcycles entering a specific house. He records the address and immediately calls Myong-gil. The villain doesn't waste a second. He mobilizes his entire army and raids the location. Inside the hideout, they find a photo of Do-young and his pregnant wife. Myong-gil's sharp eyes notice circular indentations on the floor, the marks of a cane. He knows President Choi was there. Then, he sees the bucket of salt water and realizes Jang-do has already squealed. His goons find a phone bill belonging to Do-young, and just like that, they have his home address. The mob heads straight there. It's late at night, and the couple is fast asleep when a knock comes at the door. Someone claims to be a neighbor from downstairs. Do-young's pregnant wife is about to open it, but Do-young stops her, sensing something is wrong as he peers through the door. Realizing the thugs have found them, Do-young's first instinct is to jump from the window to escape, but he looks at his pregnant wife and realizes it's too dangerous for her. He tells her to call the police, then gives her and his unborn child a heartbreaking final kiss. He barricades the door with everything he can find, but it's no use. The thugs smash through the glass and swarm the apartment. Do-young fights like a demon, taking down several men with his knives, but the numbers are just too great. He's struck over the head and collapses while his wife screams in absolute terror. The CEO, Myong-gil, walks in like he owns the place. He gives Do-young a horrific choice. He'll let the wife live, but only if Do-young gives up Yang-young's location. Helpless and watching his wife in danger, Do-young has no choice. He breaks and gives Myong-gil the address. Back at President Choi's, they are having one last meal cooked by Gun-woo's mother. The president orders Gun-woo and Hyun-ju to drive the mother to his orphanage immediately to hide out until the coast is clear. She agrees and quickly packs her things. In another part of town, Uncle Yang-young returns to his sushi shop only to find a nightmare. His young employee has been murdered. He calmly puts on his chef's uniform, only to turn around and see Myong-gil waiting for him in the shadows. Stunned, Yang Yung asks, "How did you find me?" Myung-gil's reply is cold as ice. "Duyong told me exactly where you'd be." His heart shattered. Uncle Yang Yung asks the question he's terrified to hear. "Did you kill them both?" Myung-gil doesn't even blink. He just gives a sickening, cold-blooded nod and a smirk. Yang Yung lunges into the fight with everything he's got. But Myung-gil plays dirty. He's got a hidden blade built into the toe of his shoe, and he uses it to slice Yang Yung's hamstrings. The legendary bladesman tries to counterattack and lands a solid stab, but it's no use. Myung-gil is wearing high-grade body armor underneath his clothes. He's a tank. He stabs the uncle, sending him to the floor. In a final act of desperation, Yang Yung pulls out a long blade, aiming for the weak spots in the armor. He's this close to breaking through, but Myung-gil is too fast. He overpowers the old master and uses Yang Yung's own knife to execute him on the spot. With the legend dead, Myung-gil orders his entire army to march on President Choi's mansion. A locksmith slips in, opens the gates, and a wave of thugs floods the house. Wu Jin hears the intruders and alerts the president. Choi tells the boy to hide in the basement, but Wu Jin is a ride-or-die friend. He chooses to stay behind and take on the mob alone to buy the president time. But there are just too many of them. Despite his boxing skills, the numbers game is too much, and the thugs begin pouring into the basement. President Choi isn't going down without a fight, though. He cracks open his safe, pulls out a handgun, and starts dropping goons left and right. But back upstairs, Wu Jin is overwhelmed. One of the thugs pins him down and brutally stabs him multiple times in the stomach. Then, the powerhouse Inbeam storms the basement and overpowers the elderly president. Myung-gil walks in, eyes the massive pile of gold in the safe, and coldly executes President Choi. He loots every last bar of gold and sets the entire mansion ablaze, leaving nothing but ashes. By the time Gunwoo and Hyunju race back, the house is a literal inferno. Gunwoo charges into the flames, finding a dying Wu Jin and carrying him out on his back. Hyunju sprints to the basement, only to find the man who was like a father to her, lifeless. She collapses over his body, sobbing in agony. Gunwoo has to literally drag her out of the house as the roof begins to cave in. Wu Jin is rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He's lost a massive amount of blood, and thanks to the COVID pandemic, the hospital's blood bank is bone dry. Without hesitation, Gunwoo volunteers to give his own blood. The nurses tell him they've already taken the safe limit, but Gunwoo begs them to keep going, shouting that he's a pro boxer and his body is strong enough to handle it. He's willing to bleed dry if it means saving his brother. Outside, Hyunju is a shell of herself, drowning in guilt. She blames herself for the entire tragedy, believing her obsession with the investigation caused everyone's death. When the transfusion is over, Gunwoo staggers out only to find that Hyunju has vanished. He calls her repeatedly, but she doesn't pick up. But then, a miracle, the doctor announces the surgery was a success. Wu Jin is going to live. Gunwoo breaks down in tears of pure relief, thanking the doctors for saving his only friend. It's an absolute tragedy. The good guys were slaughtered and the villains won. But don't go anywhere just yet, because the most epic revenge arc is about to begin. The story jumps forward. Gunwoo and Wu Jin have relocated to a remote, secluded area in the countryside. Every single day, they are putting themselves through a hellish training regime to sharpen their bodies and their combat skills. With the discipline of the Marines, they've transformed themselves into absolute units. We're talking shredded, six-pack abs, and muscles like steel. They're living with Driver O now, who has become their mentor. Seeing the fire for revenge burning in their eyes, Driver O calls them in for a serious talk. Gunwoo looks him dead in the eyes and says he's 100% confident they can take Myung-gil down now. But Driver O is the voice of reason. He reminds them that two legendary world-class bladesmen were slaughtered by those monsters, so what chance do two young boxers have? Gunwoo stands his ground, saying he's going to follow President Choi's final philosophy. Gather everyone who has ever stepped on by Myung-gil and use their collective rage to crush him. Driver O, however, isn't convinced. He delivers a flat-out no. He's not giving them permission to throw their lives away. Driver O visits President Choi's grave, where he discovers a heartbreaking letter left by Hyunju. In it, she explains that she's headed to Rome, using the small inheritance her grandfather had set aside for her. She confesses that she couldn't bear to stay in Korea. Everywhere she looked, she saw the ghost of her late grandfather. She expresses her deep respect for Driver O and apologizes for leaving so suddenly without a proper goodbye. Returning to the safe house, Driver O calls Gunwoo and Wu Jin over and hands them a suitcase overflowing with cash. He explains that this is President Choi's final emergency fund. He's also arranged a secret place for them to stay in Seoul and gives them a stern warning. Stay sharp and stay safe. The two young warriors bow deeply in gratitude, promising to bring home a victory. Once they arrive in Seoul, they find their new home, which turns out to be the apartment of Driver O's granddaughter. She's no pushover. She immediately hits them with a long list of strict house rules they have to follow if they want to stay. With a roof over their heads, the boys start looking for allies. First, they pay a visit to Woo Jin's old boss, the loan shark. Since he was also scammed by Smile Capital, they hope he'll join the fight. But the guy is a coward. He refuses to help, terrified that Ma Young-gil will have him killed. They don't give up. Next, they find the security firm director. He's in a bad way. Ma Young-gil's goons just trashed his office to collect on a predatory trap debt. When he hears that President Choi and the legendary uncles have been murdered, the director breaks down in tears. President Choi had been his life's benefactor, and the news hits him hard. Continuing their search, the boys hunt down the crippled scammer Jae Myung. Under a little intense questioning, he reveals that the henchman Junmin is still alive. He also gives them a crucial update. Ma Young-gil's dream casino still hasn't opened because of a legal deadlock with the Il-gil group. Woo Jin takes a photo of Jae Myung, using it as blackmail to ensure the rat keeps his mouth shut. The duo then hits the web to research the Il-gil group's heir and find out his name is Hong Min-beom. They borrow the granddaughter's computer, despite her constant complaining, and track down Min-beom's Instagram. They send him a bold DM. "We can help you eliminate Ma Young-gil and get back the hard drive containing your video." At that very moment, Hong Min-beom is living a nightmare. He's literally bowing his head in shame before Ma Young-gil. The crime boss is beating him senseless because the casino contract is stalled, and he even drags Min-beom to a balcony, threatening to throw him off if he doesn't comply. As Min-beom gets into his car, battered and broken, he sees the message from Gun-woo's team. He shows it to his cousin, the cop Kang Yong, who suggests they meet these mysterious strangers. The four of them meet at a quiet bar. The rich heir and the cop are old school. They try to use a drinking contest as a way to size up the two newcomers. Woo Jin has to pass because his liver was damaged in the stabbing, and Gun-woo tries to decline, saying he doesn't drink. But the cop is pushy, so Gun-woo agrees to have a few. What they didn't expect was that Gun-woo is a total legend when it comes to alcohol. He has a freakishly high tolerance. He keeps tossing back drinks while remaining perfectly sober, while the cop and the director get absolutely hammered. With the booze flowing, Min-beom breaks down, crying like a baby as he pours his heart out about the humiliation and torture he's suffered. By the end of the night, he's calling Gun-woo family. The next morning, the new squad gathers to eat instant ramen cooked by Gun-woo and Woo Jin. Once they've cleared their heads, they head to the Il-gil group headquarters to plan their final move. The strategy is set. They need to hack into Ma Young-gil's phone, trigger the safe to open, and seize or destroy that secret hard drive once and for all. The team's tech expert, a high-level cybercrime specialist, lays out two ways to infiltrate Ma Young-gil's phone. Either bait him into connecting to the building's Wi-Fi or trick him into scanning a rigged COVID-19 QR code at the entrance to inject a virus. Director Hong Min-beom is a nervous wreck. What if he figures it out? He stammers. He's so traumatized by Ma Young-gil that he can barely keep it together. His cousin, Detective Kang Yong, has to take him aside just to settle his nerves. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew sets up a high-tech command center with hidden cameras and top-tier surveillance gear. The moment of truth arrives. Ma Young-gil walks into the building for the big contract signing. Just as planned, security stops him and asks him to scan the mandatory COVID QR code. Ma Young-gil complies, but back in the van, the hacker hits a wall. There are zero security or personal apps on the device. Detective Kang Yong and the boys start to panic. Did the plan fail? As Ma Young-gil enters the meeting room to shake hands with a terrified Min-beom, the tech team spots something on the cameras. Ma Young-gil is carrying two phones. The one he used at the door was just a burner. The hacker tells them they have only one shot left. They have to force him to connect his real phone to the building's Wi-Fi. Back in the monitoring room, the pressure is suffocating. Woo Jin throws out a bold suggestion. Min-beom, stop acting. Stand your ground and demand that he deletes that video right now before you sign anything. Min-beom is shaking, saying his legs turn to jelly just looking at Ma Young-gil. But Detective Kang Yong looks him in the eye. You can do this. If anything goes south, I'll charge in there and protect you. Gun-woo nods, promising to be his shield. Summoning every ounce of courage, Min-beom walks back into the room and demands a private word with the boss. He flat out refuses to sign the contract unless the video is deleted first. Ma Young-gil scoffs, saying the file is back at his house and he'll delete it after the deal is done. But Min-beom doesn't flinch. Don't play me for a fool, he barks. He then drops a massive threat. With one phone call, he can trigger a full-scale government audit that will cost Ma Young-gil tens of billions in back taxes overnight. Ma Young-gil is actually impressed. He chuckles at Min-beom's newfound backbone and hands over his primary phone. Min-beom takes it and immediately connects to the building's Wi-Fi. We're in, the hacker shouts. She bypasses the security apps and locates the remote safe. With a final command, she triggers the self-destruct. Miles away at Ma Young-gil's house, the The hard drive containing all his blackmail files literally fries itself into a crisp. The kill files are gone. Myung-gil's ultimate insurance policy just went up in smoke. Detective Kang Yong tells the boys that they'll now pull evidence directly from the phone to put the CEO behind bars for good. After the mission, a grateful Min Byum offers to pay for top-tier plastic surgery to remove the scar on Gun-woo's face. But Gun-woo politely declines. He looks at his reflection and says that thanks to this scar, he met some incredible people and found a strength he never knew he had. Myung-gil is currently riding high, popping bottles with his goons and a group of girls to celebrate the big contract signing. But the second he steps into his house, he smells something burning. He rips open his safe only to find his precious hard drive, his ultimate insurance policy, fried to a crisp. He goes absolutely ballistic, screaming at the top of his lungs. He pulls a burner phone out of a secret cabinet and calls a mysterious contact. He sends the phone over, demanding they track down an old man. It turns out his contact is a mole, a dirty cop working inside the major crimes unit who's been feeding Myung-gil intel for years. This mole hacks into the system and quickly finds Driver O's phone number. Just as he's digging, the good Captain Kang Yong walks in, announcing that the investigation into the loan shark boss is officially underway and they've finally secured a list of victims. The dirty cop immediately tips off Myung-gil about the investigation and promises to have Driver O's exact location by morning. Myung-gil, of course, promises a massive payout for the betrayal. Armed with the address, Myung-gil's thugs go on a hunt for Driver O. They start cracking skulls and intimidating people all over town. They eventually hit a local rice shop, and the owner recognizes the description, mentioning that Driver O regularly comes by for rice deliveries. The thugs follow the lead, raid Driver O's location, and take the old man hostage. Meanwhile, Gun-woo and Woo-jin are back with the informant Jae Myung, demanding the file on Myung-gil's powerhouse. In Byum, Jae Myung demands a huge reward for the info, so Gun-woo reaches into his pocket and slaps down 10,000 won. They need to track In Byum down because he's the only one who knows where Myung-gil stashed President Choi's stolen gold. While they're talking to their landlady, Damin, they get a chilling call from In Byum. He sends a photo of a captured Driver O and orders Damin to meet them at a shopping mall in 1 hour. Damin's eyes go cold as she vows to kill him herself. Turns out, this girl is no ordinary civilian. She's an elite, world-class archer. She grabs her bow and arrows, determined to save her grandfather. Gun-woo tries to tell her it's too dangerous for her to go, but Damin shuts him down by demonstrating her pinpoint, Robin Hood accuracy, hitting the bullseye every single time. Even the two boxers are speechless. Woo-jin calls the security firm director for backup. The second he hears the news, the director literally cuts the cast off his broken arm, puts on his tactical gear like a professional assassin, and joins the squad. The four of them split into two teams and storm the building. Gun-woo and Woo-jin don't bother with stealth. Hiding is for losers. They march straight through the front door. Inside, In Byum orders his army of thugs to kill the two young boxers. But Gun-woo and Woo-jin are on a different level now. They start dismantling the goons one by one, and the rest of the mob is literally shaking in their boots at the sheer power of their punches. While the boys are clearing the floor with their bare hands, Damin is perched above, providing sniper support with her bow. One of the leaders tries to sneak up on her, but the security director is there to block his path. Down on the ground floor, after clearing the trash, Gun-woo finally comes face to face with the giant, In Byum. Gun-woo lunges forward and connects with a monstrous punch that sends the Iron Man crashing to the floor. Upstairs, Woo-jin rushes to help the security director, who's struggling against the enemy leader. Seeing that Damin's arrows are making his life miserable, the leader tries to bolt, but the director cuts him off. Just as the leader manages to overpower the director, Woo-jin arrives in the nick of time to save him. Damin has finally run out of arrows and has to switch to close combat. Back on the ground floor, Gun-woo is landing hit after hit, leaving In Byum reeling. But the giant is resilient. He manages to find an opening and wraps his massive hands around Gun-woo's throat, cutting off his air. Down on the ground floor, Gun-woo finds an opening, counters In Byum's chokehold, and delivers a finishing blow that finally puts the giant down for the count. Upstairs, Woo-jin has also finished his business, leaving the leader of the thugs gasping for air. The team ties both of them up, and it's time for some enhanced interrogation. The security director doesn't play around. He looks the leader in the eye and threatens to snip his little bird if he doesn't spill Driver O's location. Terrified of losing his manhood, the thug folds instantly and reveals the hiding spot. The four heroes toss their prisoners into the car, with Gun-woo leaving the security director to squeeze In Byum for the location of Myung-gil's hidden gold. Gun-woo, Woo-jin, and the ace archer Damin race toward the fish farm to rescue the old man. Gun-woo tips off Captain Kang Yong, who immediately orders a raid. But there's a rat in the kitchen. The mole cop hears the order and tips off Myung-gil instantly. The villain orders his crew to scrub the scene and move Driver O before the sirens get close. By the time the police swarm the farm, it's a ghost town. When Gunwoo's team arrives, they hand over the captive leader to the captain. Gunwoo's boxer instincts are tingling. He realizes the leak came from inside, and the bad guys were tipped off to clear the scene. Meanwhile, the security director is trying to get Inbeam to talk about the gold. But the big guy is a fanatic. In a horrifying display of loyalty to Myung-gil, Inbeam literally bites off his own tongue to make sure he never speaks again. When Gunwoo finds out, he immediately tells Woo Jin to call an ambulance. The security director is frustrated, thinking they just lost their only lead to the gold. But Gunwoo stands firm. We're not killers. We save lives first. The danger hits even closer to home when Captain Kang Yong stops for a coffee. Little does he know, the shop owner is an imposter who spiked his drink with a lethal toxin. The second he steps outside, the world starts spinning. He stumbles back inside, finds the real owner tied up, and realizes he's been hit. In a desperate move for survival, he crawls into a nearby house, grabs a handful of salt, and forces himself to vomit up the poison. While the captain is fighting for his life, Myung-gil's assassins are already moving in to take out the rest of the task force. Then, Gunwoo's phone rings. It's Myung-gil. The psycho gives him an ultimatum. Show up at the fish farm at 9 p.m. tonight. If I see a single cop, I'm grinding Driver O into fish feed. He brags that he's already erased Captain Kang Yong and his team, and threatens to murder Gunwoo's mother if he tries any funny business. Jaemin is fuming and demands to go, but Gunwoo hesitates. He's worried that if things go south, the trauma will destroy her just like it did Hyunju. But Woo Jin talks sense into him. This time is different. We're a team. Let's end this monster together. The trio arrives at the fish farm under the cover of night. Jaemin vanishes into the shadows to provide long-range cover, while Gunwoo and Woo Jin walk straight into the lion's den. Myung-gil is there, surrounded by Junmin and a small army of thugs, with a bound Driver O as his shield. Junmin gives the order. Kill them. Gunwoo and Woo Jin explode into action, systematically dismantling the goons. Seeing his men failing, Myung-gil pulls a desperate move. He puts a knife to Driver O's throat and orders the boys to stand still and prepare for execution. Just as the thugs move in for the kill, Jaemin's voice rings out. Get down! Gunwoo and Woo Jin hit the floor as a high-velocity arrow whistles through the air, piercing Myung-gil's shoulder. It's the opening they needed. The boys spring back up and wipe out the remaining thugs in a blur of punches. Seeing the tide has turned, Myung-gil's inner circle hustles him into a car and they peel out. Finally, the nightmare is over for Driver O. He's safe. The police swarm the fish farm, and what they find is straight out of a horror movie. This wasn't just a farm. It was a grisly body disposal site where Myung-gil's victims were erased from existence. Meanwhile, another squad raids Myung-gil's mansion. The kingpin has already vanished, but the evidence left behind is damning. Dozens of cell phones belonging to his murdered victims. Even the mole cop is caught in the dragnet, cuffed for bribery and complicity in murder. Myung-gil is now officially public enemy number 1 with a nationwide warrant out for his arrest. But Director Hong is still a nervous wreck. As long as that monster is free, I won't be able to sleep a wink, he tells the boys. Gunwoo promises to finish the job. He realizes their best lead is the ex-henchman, Jang Do, who likely knows Myung-gil's international escape routes. Detective Kang Yong tracks down Jang Do's bank account, and the informant Jae Myung comes up with a brilliant plan. Jang Do is desperate for cash. Send a small amount to his account and put your phone number in the transfer memo. He'll call you instantly. Sure enough, after they transfer 10 million won, Jang Do calls. He recognizes Gunwoo immediately as one of President Choi's hounds. Gunwoo tells him the walls are closing in on Myung-gil and they need his help. Jang Do is a shark. He demands 1 billion won for the intel and gives them a 4-day deadline. Gunwoo and Woo Jin check the president's emergency suitcase, but they're short, only 300 million left. They turn to Director Hong for the rest. The director is hesitant, worried that Jang Do will just take the money and run. But Gunwoo looks him in the eye. If he betrays us, Woo Jin and I will hunt him to the ends of the earth. That's all the director needs to hear. He covers the bill. Once the cash hits his account, Jang Do keeps his word. He hits the docks, finds Myung-gil's trail, and calls Gunwoo with the final location. The plan is set. Myung-gil is boarding a ship the day after tomorrow, heading for Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. He's already greased the palms of local officials there to ensure a smooth arrival. Jang Do even provides the number of a contact on the ship so the boys can negotiate their way on board. After a final, emotional goodbye to Driver O and Jaemin, the boys set off on their final mission. They bribe an employee and successfully sneak onto the massive cargo ship. As the vessel leaves the harbor, Gunwoo and Woo Jin begin a room-by-room sweep. Woo Jin finds Junmin first. Without wasting a second, he hits the thug with a taser shot so powerful it drops him instantly. Then, the Iron Man in-beam appears for the ultimate rematch. He tosses Wu Jin down to the lower deck. But Wu Jin is a different beast now. He plays a calculated game of cat and mouse with the giant before landing a thunderous knockout punch that puts the beast down for good. Up on the main deck, Gun Wu finally corners Myung-gil. He lets out a roar and charges. Myung-gil realizes he's outmatched in a fair fight, so he plays dirty, trying to use the hidden blades in his shoes. He manages to kick Gun Wu in the face, sending him reeling. But Gun Wu is relentless. He scales the deck from a different angle and engages in a final, brutal showdown. After a flurry of devastating blows, Gun Wu finally breaks the monster. As Myung-gil tries to pull a hidden knife for one last desperate stab, Gun Wu delivers a series of finishing strikes that leave him broken on the deck. Looking at his friend, Gun Wu says, "I think we've really become bloodhounds now." Wu Jin just smiles and shakes his head. "No, brother. We're going home to be real boxers again." In the ship's hold, they hit the motherlode. Every single bar of Myung-gil's stolen gold. Director Hong is already closing in on a luxury yacht to meet them. Gun Wu calls him to confirm the gold is secured. The director asks about Myung-gil's phone, and Gun Wu retrieves it, handing over the digital evidence that will bury the kingpin forever. They call Detective Kang Yong with the good news, and the captain confirms that Interpol is already standing by in Vietnam to intercept any stragglers. Then comes the big question. Director Hong asks the boys what they want to do with the gold. Gun Wu doesn't hesitate. He remembers President Choi's legacy of helping the weak. He wants every cent to go back to those in need. The director jokingly asks, "You don't want to keep any for yourselves?" Gun Wu replies, "Of course we do, but this money doesn't belong to us." The director reveals the gold is worth a staggering 84 billion won, around $60 million. He promises to use it to set up a massive welfare foundation and build a world-class hospital. Gun Wu has one request: name the hospital after President Choi. The director admits it'll be a legal challenge, but he vows to make it happen. As a final thank you, he hands Gun Wu and Wu Jin 2 solid gold bars each as a personal reward, promising to cover the cost out of his own pocket so the foundation stays whole. Finally, the heroes return to Korea. They head straight to the orphanage for a tearful reunion with Gun Wu's mother. She breaks down in tears, hugging her son and checking on Wu Jin like he's her own. Gun Wu looks at his family and says the words they've waited a lifetime to hear. "Let's go home." The movie ends with the three of them walking together under the warm sun, finally free.